The Whoop is one of the most popular wearable fitness trackers. Every time I say Whoop, I can't help think of the song Whoop Whoop, it's the sound of the police. If they are not using that in their advertising, they are definitely missing a trick. It uses metrics like heart rate variability, resting heart rate, temperature, oxygen levels, respiratory rate to create a picture of how your body's responding to different demands. It can track your physiological stress levels, telling you to train harder or to take it easy a bit today. Or like mine sometimes does, saying, you should be going to bed today at 7 p.m. But Whoop, I'm in clinic until 8 p.m. What do you expect me to do? Now I'm a doctor really into health science and tech, and I'm trying the Whoop for 30 days. They have a 1-month free trial where you can request a device, you can try it out for free for a month to see if you like it or not. And here's my honest verdict. We're gonna be talking about what's good about it, what's bad about it, and whether I would actually buy one and pay the subscription, because yes, it is a subscription, not a one-off payment. You do not get off that easy. My name's Kieran, it's been a while, let's get into it. Now here's a quick overview. The Whoop device is actually inside of this wrist strap at the moment. Now this is what you get. This is the basic wrist strap that you get if you're buying a Whoop. You can upgrade things like the color of the strap, like the color of this buckle here, and obviously you're gonna pay extra for these things. There are bicep armbands, there are wearable clothes where you can put the actual device in clothes as well. But this is the basic model if you don't wanna pay anything extra. There's a little clasp on it that you open up here, and underneath you can see the fitness tracker which sits inside. I have been wearing this similar to a wristwatch because I think anything on other parts of my body I would probably find a bit more uncomfortable, and I'm very used to wearing a watch. So it snaps on like that and it looks like a bracelet. The Whoop device is accompanied by an app as well, and I would say the Whoop actually itself is nothing without the app. I just imagine the app going, you are nothing without me, to the Whoop. And that's because the Whoop doesn't have a screen. Like there's nothing on it. It's quite unassuming to look at. Now the Whoop app has 4 tabs on the homepage. It has an overview showing you sort of an overview of everything, the activity you've done today, your recovery, strain, sleep levels, and then it's got a more detailed analysis of your sleep, what your sleep was the day before, how much sleep you should be getting that night, your recovery metric, which can give you an idea of how much stress or pressure you can put on your body that day, exercise-wise, and then strain. So strain is some metric that it uses to measure how much strain you're giving your body today, to basically tell you, should I be doing other things exercise-wise today, or should I be pushing myself harder, or should I not be doing anything at all? And inside of each of these tabs, there's a lot more detailed analysis of the trends, which is really interesting, about your strain, your average heart rate, and what it looks like over time. So you can see mine going up and down there, and the average number of calories you've burnt each day. If you're doing activity, you have to actually log it. You have to press it to start it on the Whoop by pressing that little button there, and then you can press add activity, and you can tell it what activity you've done in the past, or start activity to basically start an activity. So if I wanted to go for a run, for example, I'd hit start activity, and then I'd go for my run, I would come back and I'd hit end activity. Now here's what I found it actually useful for. The first one is the diary function. Now diary function is one of the main reasons I wanted to try this out, is that every single day in the morning, you get a pop-up on your phone that basically says, tell me about the day before. And it has a load of questions that it asks you about your previous day. And you can customize these questions as well. Mine say things like, did you share a bed? How many coffees did you have? How many alcoholic drinks did you have that day? Were you feeling sick? Did you take any medication that day? And there's a load of other things that you can add on to there. And now this is the interesting bit, is that when it has enough data, so it needs 5 yeses and 5 nos, so you need 5 days of saying, yes, I've had coffee, and 5 days of saying, no, I haven't had coffee, it can then produce a report to basically tell you which of these metrics have an impact on your sleep. Now that's really interesting, because you can use that data to say, well, actually, if I'm having caffeinated drinks after 12 o'clock, it's having a big impact on my sleep. Or if I'm drinking lots of alcohol, my sleep is obviously getting worse. Now, these are honestly probably things you can work out for yourself. There's going to be nothing on here that I would consider to be completely revolutionary. I'm not going to read this and think, oh my God, coffee has an impact on my sleep, because we know it does. The science says it does. But to have an objective measure like this, I think is very interesting. Because I've only had it for 3, coming up to 4 weeks now, the only one thing that it can actually give me information about is that it tells me if I've had a stressful day, it hurts my recovery. So Again, this is not something that is new or revolutionary news. You know, we would know that if you've had a stressful day, your recovery is going to be worse. I have put lots of information about alcohol and bloating and caffeine, but it doesn't have enough data, it says, to come up with a conclusion about how these impact my sleep. I imagine if you're using this over a long period of time, this data would be very interesting. One of the other reasons I got it is for tracking illness or predicting illness, because I watched a video of a guy who could predict when he was going to be unwell because his Whoop device told him he would be so. And I got to test this out firsthand because I actually caught COVID during the first week of getting this. So I wore it for a few days and then I got COVID, and I got to see in the few days leading up to when I actually got COVID, my resting heart rate started to increase and my respiratory rate started to increase, and that bar that tells me about my recovery started going down into the amber and into the red, basically saying your body is under stress. Now, that was a few days leading up to when I became unwell, but my body was telling me that already because I felt absolutely terrible. So it was nothing revolutionary, but interesting to see that it was happening on the actual device as well. Would I or could I have done anything to prevent the illness? Probably not. Did it change anything I did? Also probably not. But it's interesting to see if you're interested in that kind of thing. I'm trying to show you these metrics now, but I don't know why. For some reason, it needs internet for me to show you these things. So I have to take my phone off airplane mode for it to show me data that it already has. It makes no sense, but I'm gonna do that now. So here's the data that we can see of my resting heart rate. And can you guess which day I tested positive for COVID? It was on Sunday the 20th. So you can see on the Friday, my heart rate creeping up, on the Saturday, on the Sunday I tested positive for COVID, on the Monday it went up even more, and on the Tuesday and Wednesday I started to recover by that point. Now, on the Tuesday, I also stopped drinking coffee, so that could have had an impact on my heart rate, but equally, it's such an interesting thing to have, and there's a similar pattern when you look at the respiratory rate as well. If I go back to that week, it will show you that on Sunday the 20th, when I tested positive for COVID, my respiratory rate had gone up from 12.6 on the Friday to 15.8. So that's still considered in a normal range of respiratory rate, but compared to my own baseline, we can see that it's above the average. And we have exactly the same pattern with the heart rate variability, where the heart rate variability, if it's low, is worse. And you can see that on the Sunday I tested positive, it went down, showing that clearly something was going on in my body. Another few things I found helpful are telling me how hard to train that day. So I was kind of using this, looking at it and looking at that recovery bar to decide how hard to train that day. And it's either red, telling you to take it easy, it's amber, saying you can go at your own pace, or it's green saying absolutely go as hard as you can. Now, I don't know if I should have been doing this, because there were some days my body felt fine and actually felt like I could have done more, and other days where I didn't do anything because it was in the red zone. And I think not having that regularity with the exercise and trying to go by this, maybe it's better for my body, but I also wonder if I should just be listening to myself rather than the metrics sometimes. The app is very intuitive, very easy to understand, and I think the app is really the highlight of the whole of the Whoop device, is that you can open it and it's very clearly showing you what's happening in your body and what you're supposed to be doing about it, if you're meant to be sleeping more or working more or whatever. And finally, on the pros of the device, the charging for it is completely portable. So with an Apple Watch, you have to take it off, put it on a charger, and I charge this pretty much every night. The Whoop battery lasts a couple of days, and you slip this device on top of the Whoop like this. It clicks into place, and that is now charging while it's on my wrist. Yes, it's pretty bulky, but you can walk around with that, keep it on for a few hours. When it's fully charged, your app will tell you, and then you can slip that off again. This charges with a USB-C, so if you have things like a MacBook or any USB-C charger, you can charge that and then just slip it on. So if you wanted to, you could keep this on 24/7. So now we're gonna talk about the cons and the things I didn't like about the Whoop. The first thing is, I generally don't like the look of it. It looks like a band and it feels pretty cheap. This band itself, I've had it for a month and it's already starting to fray. It feels like a very cheap piece of plastic. The little toggle underneath keeps popping out every so often, and it's not that easy to take on and off. The actual device itself is in this little metal case, and considering the cost of this, it does not feel like a high-end device or like a high-end fitness tracker. This charger, whilst amazingly portable, which I absolutely love and you can pop it on, is incredibly unreliable. I found that the charger can only hold one charger battery. What is the point of that? What's the point of having that? As well as that, when you pop this on, when you slide this on, this becomes really bulky, and so bulky that it actually is flicking around my wrist, and I actually don't find it comfortable to have that on at all. I would rather actually not charge it on my wrist when it feels like this. So actually what I've ended up doing is, for the past few weeks, is when I want to charge it, is taking it off, plugging the charger in and having it charged somewhere else. And then when it's done, I'll put it back on. So I think there needs to be a better solution for the charging for this, because that is not cool. The subscription for the Whoop is incredibly expensive. And I'm not a huge fan of subscription things. I think, you know what, there's a thing, I've saved up for it, I'm gonna pay for it, and then that's it. I shouldn't have to keep paying for it. But you do, and I guess at least that allows them to update hardware and software and things like that regularly, because they're getting regular income. But at the same time, it just seems like a bit of a ploy in a fitness tracker. If I wanted to keep this device, it would cost me £229 for the annual subscription if I was paying on a one-off fee. So that is a lot of money when you consider that over 5 years, this is going to cost you £1,000. I don't know what you're thinking. Maybe you just have it, you keep it for a year or so and you get rid of it. Guess what happens to your data if you get rid of your subscription? Like magic, it is gone. You do not own that data. It's on Whoop servers. Whoop owns that data. And so all of the data you have in your Whoop, unless it's downloaded offline, is going to disappear. So all of the diaries you have on the trackers that we were talking about that are really good, all of your data about your heart rate going down and your heart rate variability and everything, it is gone if you cancel your subscription. Now that feels like a bit of a con, especially if you've been paying for a long time. We've talked about how useful the sleep tracker is in telling you how well you've slept and the different zones of sleep, but I've sometimes found that I am sleeping way less than I thought I was, and also then sleeping at a worse quality than I thought I was. And reading about how badly I've slept on my Whoop, and reading that I've only slept for 6 hours today and it was poor sleep as it is making me tired in the daytime. Now I don't know whether it's the sleep is poor and that is I'm gonna be tired anyway, or whether reading it tell me that the sleep is poor has made me tired. I don't know, but I think tracking your sleep that closely, and maybe I've been doing it too closely, is a bit of a vicious cycle into insomnia and being a bit obsessive with sleep tracking, and that making your sleep worse, and that then making your recovery worse as well. Now finally, is it super unique? I think a lot of these functions can be done on other devices. So an Apple Watch can do a lot of the things that this can do, including the heart rate variability with certain apps, but they're presented in a less good way. So the best thing about the Whoop is how everything is presented on the app so nicely. If there was an equivalent on the Apple Watch where everything was presented, I know there are some, but they aren't quite as good as the Whoop's one, but a lot of these features are not special to this device and can be done with other apps. So what's the summary? I want a 1-month free trial and I will be returning it. This may seem really obvious, but the fact that it doesn't have a screen and there isn't a watch is a big turn off for me. And the main reason is, one, is I'm so used to looking at the watch to check the time, and two, it's not a standalone device by itself. You need the phone. I would say that this is just an accessory to the Whoop app. You can easily go out for a day with your Apple Watch and do all your fitness things. You can't with the Whoop unless you've got your phone with you. If you want to see all the metrics about how hard to train while you're training, that's all done on the phone. Now I know that's great for battery life and it's probably great for keeping it slim and sleek, but for me, when I want everything at ease, I think it needs to have some way for me to be able to see this information. It's an extremely expensive subscription for data that my body can probably tell me myself. And a lot of the things like, for example, the diary tracking, you can do that yourself. You can create an Excel spreadsheet with all of this information on, be rigorous about tracking what's happened that day, what you've drank, what you've ate, how you felt, and create your own scale and your own data that you can then own yourself about this information. So although you get the prompts on the Whoop device and it makes things easier, it is still possible to do these things without paying a super expensive subscription. I think if you're a top level athlete, if you are a pro athlete, I'm not talking about someone that's training 4 or 5 times a week, I'm talking about a pro athlete where these little things make a difference to how you train, then I think it's probably worth it. But for 99% of the people who are not that, I think it isn't worth it. I probably wouldn't even recommend that people do the trial. And the reason I say that is because you have to pay for the device to come and you've got to pay for the return, which they're not very clear with up front. And then they say that if the device is not returned within the 30 days, you'll be charged the annual subscription fee. But when you apply to return the device, they say to you, we'll email you a label within a few days. And then you've got to post it within a few days. So that is a few days, plus if they've not received it, they're going to charge you for the annual subscription. It seems like a bit of a sneaky way of tying people into an annual subscription and for paying for something they don't really want, which is a bit of a dodgy tactic all around. So in summary, this is going back, you're going to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Seriously though, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, I make videos about my life as a doctor and things you can improve in your own life, so please do hit that subscribe button. I've also got a tech channel which has a load more videos about the Whoop and other fitness devices on it, so you can check that one out here as well.